Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new I Do Work Here Lady stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled, Salesperson Calls My Business Line Then Tries to Mansplain That He Does Not Work for the Company Where I Work. This happened no more than 2 minutes ago. I work for an insurance company. I got a phone call today and answered it like I usually do. Hello. Business name. This is Coconut. I couldn't hear the person on the other end very well and had to say, hello? I don't think he was expecting me to answer. From making sales calls myself, I know that sometimes you get lost in the sound of the phone ringing over and don't realize right away that you've got a live one. He said he was calling from other business name and said he was calling about a refund I was owed on my gas bill. I asked if he realized he was calling an insurance agency. He said, no ma'am, I am calling from, repeats other business name, about your gas line. I said I do not have a gas line because I am an insurance agency. I emphasized that he had called an insurance agency. He repeats even slower, no ma'am, I am calling about your gas line. I cut him off and asked, equally slowly, so are you calling about the gas line that we do not have at the insurance agency that you called where I am working right now? He was silent for a moment before saying, no. I put on my angry customer service voice and said, I need to get back to work now because I am on my work line, but thank you very much for calling and have a nice day. And I hung up. I get at least 1 or 2 calls every month from salespeople who refuse to hear me when I repeatedly tell them that they have called a business. They insist that they didn't and that they're calling about a utility bill, an extended warranty on my car, or my personal favorite, life insurance. I sell life insurance. I have life insurance through my work, which is where you just called. I am not interested in talking to you about a life insurance policy when I myself sell life insurance using the phone number you just called. The next story is titled, Man Gets Mad Because I Forgot About Him, but I have no idea who he is or what he's talking about. So I walk dogs as a side hustle since I quit my day job due to COVID. I have a regular employer that hires me to walk her dog once a day 5 days a week. Today as we were getting back from our walk, I noticed a truck parked in front of my employer's house but didn't think much of it because there are usually cars parked on the street. As I'm walking up the driveway with the dog in front of me, I noticed a man speed walking towards us from across the street. I unlocked the door and went inside, quickly shutting the door and locking it behind me. Through the window I can see the man angrily striding up to the door where he began knocking. I didn't answer the door at first because it's not my house and I'm a 5'2" female and I'm not sure the dog would have been much help in protecting me against this seemingly angry man, but he wouldn't stop knocking and he had clearly seen me go into the house. I couldn't leave without going past him. So I cracked the door open and asked the man if I can help him with something and he starts yelling at me asking if I had forgotten about him and saying he was now running late because he was supposed to start measuring for a fence at 1:30. It was about 1:45. I tell the man I'm sorry but I don't live here and that I am just employed by the owner, but he doesn't seem satisfied with this answer and continues to yell about how his time is valuable. At this point I cut him off and say, sir, I understand you are upset, but I don't live here, I just work here, so I don't know what to tell you, to which he gets even more angry. He crumpled a piece of paper from his clipboard and tossed it at the glass door between us and walked off down the driveway. I picked up the paper and smoothed it out and left it on my employer's table and texted her to tell her what happened. Needless to say, I don't think she will be purchasing a fence from the angry man. The next story is titled, 17-year-old girl gets cops and CPS called on her for being forced to work as an overdeveloped minor. Saw a YouTube video that made me recall it, but I remembered a story I heard from a girl I knew back in college. She was a working 17-year-old girl, is 26 now, short, baby-faced, developed, it's relevant, and a young-sounding voice. Honestly, if you didn't grow up with her, she could show her ID and you'd think on some level that it had to be faked and that she was actually 12 to 13. My friend was working one day when a Karen came in trying to be a guardian angel for her and take her away from this evil store, forcing a child to work, even grabbing her hand and trying to escort her outside. Friend broke free from her grip as she had shelves to stock. Friend then explained she was 17, manager explained she was 17, but the Karen went on her tirade on the manager for forcing a kid to work and scaring her into compliance with his crimes. The most notable comment was something like, "You scum, you're just relying on the fact that she's a preteen with big breasts to attract business from pedos." Manager called the cops as Karen refused to leave, and the Karen called CPS as she believed she was trying to do a good deed, and after the cops and CPS verified my friend was as old as she said she was. CPS went home and the Karen had the look of, "I lost but I don't want to admit it," so the cops said to the Karen that if she didn't leave the store per the manager's request, Karen would be charged harassment, causing a scene, assault, and kidnapping. Thus the Karen left, likely ready to study her dark side Karen arts even further. Manager was nice enough to send her home early with an "sorry for the inconvenience" bonus on her paycheck. The next story is titled, "Yeah, that's me. Yes, I am old enough." So this was a while ago and happened with DHL, Deutsche Post in my area. I was 20 at that time, waiting for a package of shisha tobacco and another of car parts. So, one nice morning during my vacation the doorbell rings and I open the door. Hooray! The packages arrived. I was about to take the packages from the mailman but he stepped back suddenly. I looked confused at him. "Op equals me, MM equals mailman." Sorry, kid, but I can only give them to Op. Note, I shaved my beard off the day before as it had some patches. Fixed after using some cream. Op, yeah, that's me. Thanks for the delivery. Nice try, kid. Get Op, please. Op, yeah. I am Op. I ordered these. BS, you aren't even old enough to purchase these. I had it with this dude, so I said, "Hold on," and went back inside to grab my ID. Upon returning he was gone and left the "we were there, you not" card in the mailbox. I was fuming. I had to wait to the next day to retrieve my package from the post office, which is 15 kilometers away from me. As soon as I got the packages after waiting in line for about 30 minutes I asked to speak with someone in charge. I made a formal complaint about the dude with his boss. He said he was supposed to ask for ID in the first place. Never happened. The next day I saw him again. He brought the mail up and rang the doorbell. I opened the door and he started to apologize profusely. I told him it's okay. I received a call later from his boss asking me if he apologized to me. I confirmed and that apology saved him from a write-up apparently. Is a good guy. He just handled the situation wrong. The next story is titled, "I'm the Decision Maker." In the dot-com boom I worked for a consultancy that took jobs to build websites. One of our clients wanted to buy a web content management system, and talked to us. Consulting on purchases wasn't our usual line of work, but they thought it would be interesting and I was assigned to the job as the technical person who would look at the options, make a decision, and write up a recommendation. I was pretty expensive at $300 an hour, which was a lot at the time. I had looked at all the commercial options, there were only about 8 at the time, and the client's needs, and determined in only about an hour that only one software package would meet their needs, but the client really wanted me to come to their office and let them call in all the vendors and conduct vendor meetings and show the staff what the relative merits were and convince them that my choice was the right choice. I had a phone call to discuss it with the boss at the client, told him he could get off very cheap because I could already write up the recommendation and be done, but he wanted me to come in person to do it anyway because he could be spending $1 million on the product and a few tens of grand of my time was a drop in the bucket to get the staff to want to use it, and assured me that my decision would stand and he would do what I recommended, but he still wanted me to come conduct the meetings to try to get staff buy-in. So his staff called all the vendors and scheduled vendor meetings and I showed up to conduct the vendor meetings as requested. One of the vendors, I think it was the second, showed up. I walked into the room with someone who wasn't the boss from the client, and the person from the client, thinking they were being a smart ass, didn't bother to introduce me as the impressive expensive consultant. They just said this is first name, while everyone else was introduced by their full name and company title and their relationship to the project. I didn't bother to correct them, as this suited me just fine. I could sit in the corner and watch and not have the salesperson try to play to my expectations. The sales lady tried to play to all their expectations. The product was what we like to call fully buzzword compliant. She wanted to use as many possible buzzwords to dazzle the client with technical terms, whether she even knew what those terms meant or not. It has XML buttons. It has an HTML4 based processor. Oh no, we don't JavaScript, our research shows clients don't like that. I sat in the corner next to the door, listened, and took notes. As we approached the end of the conversation, she asked, "Any questions?" My clients' people all had a happy glow as that dazzled them with nonsense buzzwords. Thing worked on them. None of them were technical people. So I looked at my notes and started asking questions to see if she even knew what half the buzzwords meant and why they were stuck together in nonsensical ways. You said it has XML buttons. What is XML? What are XML buttons? You said it has an XML4 processor. What is HTML? How does that differ from HTML4? How can you be using HTML4 when it isn't even out yet? What is a processor? What does it mean to have an HTML4 processor? What is JavaScript? Is it a verb? You could see the gears turning in the clients' heads as they realized they had just been bamboozled, and she had no answers and wasn't used to being questioned even though she had invited it. She finally failed to hide her irritation, glared at me, and growled, "Who are you anyway? What makes you think you have the right to ask these sorts of questions?" I replied, "I'm the person who decides if your product gets purchased or not," stood up, and walked out. I returned to my hotel for the night, and never saw her again. Her product was just mysteriously removed from the client's list of candidates. Dumb move on her part, because I actually liked her product, and if she had merely been polite about it I would have probably recommended against her product for this client, but recommended it to other clients, and there were more of them who would want her product than were like this one. The next story is titled, "Almost Got Taken Back to School." Little forward, I'm currently 22 and this was something that happened when I was like 12. I still remember the events because I've got a pretty good memory, and in after though it's sort of funny, scary. So this happened when I was helping my parents sell tickets for helicopter rides. My family does aerial crop dusting, but around Christmas we used to give short helicopter rides at a tree farm after we flew in Santa Claus to make a pretty fun, festive entrance for him. It was pretty cool. About the second or third day in, I'm just hanging around playing in the snow with the other kids while my mum grabbed lunch for us, and some random older woman comes up to me and says, "Hey, is your name?" Same name as mine, oddly enough, and being from a small town I didn't think much of it. I said, "Yeah, I'm name." So she grabs my hand and says, "Come on, we need to get back on the bus and go back to class." At this point I kind of freaked out, ripped my hand out of my glove and hauled butt towards the ice house we had set up as a ticket booth. My mum had gotten there just before me, very thankfully, so the door was unlocked and she was getting ready to push the booth door open when I come flying in like a bat out of hell and yelling. The lady came knocking and asked where I went, and my mum had some creative things to say, but in the end it was a case of mistaken identity and I went back to helping sell tickets. I know it's not a typical IDWHL story, but I felt it's the closest category this falls under. Feel free to remove if it violates a rule somewhere. The next story is titled, "I Do Work Here, and Your Vacation is Over." Quite a few years ago, I worked as a ski school supervisor at a mountain resort. One day early in the season, it's slow, so I decide to go take a run with one of my coworkers. Since I've been on my skis a lot, I opt to grab my snowboard for this particular jaunt. This is important later. So me and my buddy are out and about for a couple runs, and it's time to head back in to check for lessons. We are down off the main mountain, and just cruising along a green, easy run that leads back to the base area. Like I said, it's a slow day, so there's nobody around. Or so I think. I'm making regular, smooth turns on my board when out of nowhere I hear a woman from behind me screech, "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" Before I can even flinch, I feel something hit the tail of my board. I get spun around, and go down kind of hard. For a moment, the red rage light blinks in my head, but I think, okay, we're in a beginner area, she might not have had control, it was an accident. Be cool. I pull myself up off the snow, and calm myself down. I look down the hill, and there are two Karens standing about 50 yards downhill. Obviously one of them was the one that hit me. Cool, they've stopped to make sure I'm okay and apologize. I slide down to them and open my mouth to check if they're okay. Before I can even get word one out of my mouth, Karen 1 starts screaming at me. "What the duck do you think you're doing? You could have killed me. You ducking snowboarders are a menace, you don't belong on the mountain." And on it goes. Screaming at me, cursing at me, calling me all sorts of names. One important note, there are a set of rules that govern skiing, and one of them is that skiers and riders ahead of you have the right of way. Just like driving, if you hit someone from behind while skiing, you're 100% at fault. I try to interrupt politely to tell her this, but Karen is having none of it. At this point I'm thinking, okay, duck you Karen. I'm tearing you a new hole once you're finished yelling. I look over at my buddy for backup, and suddenly my rage-filled brain realizes something. My buddy is in full uniform. I look down. Black pants, blue and gray jacket with the resort logo on front and back, bright shiny gold name tag that says supervisor under my name, and a radio mic clipped to my collar. Yeah, I'm in full uniform too. At this point, I'm dumbfounded. Is this woman seriously screaming and cursing at two mountain employees after she just caused a crash? What? Then I get calm and hold out my hand for her to stop. I have no idea why, but Karen stops screaming. I reach up to the radio mic and call ski patrol. I ask them to have the patrol director on duty meet me at the base area. It's at this point that it finally dawns on Karen that she has ducked up. She starts asking why I called patrol and what I'm going to do. I just shrug. She starts saying she doesn't want me following her, and to leave her alone. Again, we're almost inside of the base. There's nowhere else to go other than to follow this trail down. She realizes she's stuck, and skis down with her friend. Her friend at this point looks mortified, by the way. We get to the base, and the patrol director is standing there with another patroller. I give a recap of the events, including some of the graphic things she told me to do to myself and multiple family members. The patrol director rolls his eyes, then pulls out wire cutters. Karen goes wide-eyed and is like, no. You can't take my ticket. It's a 5-day ticket, we just got here today. This is our vacation. Tickets are over $75 per day, so we're talking like a $350 ticket this lady has on. The patrol director just shrugs and says, well ma'am, then you just made a very expensive mistake, and clips the ticket. At that point, my coworker and I beat a retreat back to the ski school, because we want no part of the fallout. The next story is titled, I work there, please don't arrest me. Some time ago, probably around 2010, I worked for a pizza franchise. There was a manager on vacation at a location I did not work at, so I was asked to fill in the time for them on my regular days off. The franchisee found out that I would be working at that store and asked me on the second day I worked there to do a full audit of the store because she was suspicious people were giving her incorrect numbers. So because this audit took a while, I was leaving the pizza place at 2 a.m, and another important detail is I did not have a key to the front of the place, only to the back, so I parked behind the store, left, locked the back door and started to drive off. When I got to the exit of the parking lot, there was a sheriff car going 3 to 5 miles per hour in the right turn lane that turned into the place I was working. He was going so slow I had enough time to consider pulling in front of him several times, but I decided to just sit there thinking, maybe he is on his computer and as soon as I pull out he will zip to full speed. This sheriff car turns right into the parking lot I am pulling out of. I pull out and see the sheriff car turn around in the parking lot and get right behind me. He turned on his red and blue lights on right as we were getting to a McDonald's. I was like, OF***KY. I pull into McDonald's and go into the first available parking space, turn my dome light on, roll down the window, literally roll down the window. My car did not have power windows. Guy comes up to me shouting, "What were you doing in that parking lot?" I pointed to the pizza company logo on my shirt. Guy a little nicer, "Oh, people have been robbing other business in that strip mall, sorry to do that." I thanked him for considering our safety and then I went on my way. The next story is titled, But I Was Supposed to Meet the Professor Here. One time on my commute to grad school I found a phone on the side of the road. I flipped through it to text Mum that the phone had been found. She gave her thanks and we arranged a time for her to pick it up on behalf of her teenage daughter. The best time for us both was when I was instructing a lab, and I told her just to ask for the instructor when she arrived in the classroom. I'm a 5 feet 1 inch blonde who had been asked a couple times throughout grad school if I was a freshman. So I shouldn't have been surprised when the lady stepped into the classroom while I was helping a student with a scope, wandered around briefly without talking to anyone, then left while mumbling aloud, "Well, I was supposed to meet a professor." I had to go chase her down in the parking lot after one of my students who overheard the lady's exasperation flagged me down. The next story is titled, But I Do Work Here. This happened several years ago when I worked at GameStop in college. It was near closing time on a Sunday, so it was just my manager, MGR, and myself. MGR was working on paperwork in the back room while I was putting away game cases when a customer walks in. I greet him and ask him if there is anything I can help him find. He brushes me off and says, "No, you wouldn't know what I'm looking for." Okay. I respond, "Well, I'm here if you have any questions." He walks off to look at games. I go back to work. I go back to grab more game cases to put away. He goes over to the PS3 wall, where I just was, and picks up Dragon Age 2, which is one of my favorite games. Out of excitement, I say, "That's a great choice," which he replies with, "You don't know anything about this, you don't even work here. GameStop doesn't have uniforms, but I have the lanyard with the GameStop name badge, and I'm literally the only other person in the store." Before I can reply, MGR comes out from the back room to start counting down the registers. The customer goes up to him with Dragon Age 2 case and asks, "Have you played this game before?" MGR points to me and says, "No, but that's one of her favorite games. She can tell you all about it." He bought the game and left without even looking at me. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comment.